Hello, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different, and as a way of introduction I wanted to let you know that every year around the fall and Halloween time, my wife Jessie and I, we usually pick a different franchise to watch. And so last year we watched the Scream movies, including Scream 4. We're excited for the new Scream 5 whenever that comes out. I think it's next year. And then this year we're planning to watch the Friday the 13th 8-film collection. I know there's a new release of this with some Blu-ray copies out, but this is a copy of all the films we picked up last year. We're excited about this, and we've already watched the first film and we're into the second film. But in 2019 we watched all the Halloween films, and I used to have some videos up on the channel where she and I would talk about each of the films, and so we're going to put that up in kind of in a combined format where she and I talked about each of the films, so you can see how we reacted during that particular viewing of the Halloween franchise. Now, every year we're going to watch Halloween 1978. We love that movie. We love Halloween 2018 as an example, and we're really excited for Halloween Kills, but we thought we'd show you those videos again. Again, I used to have those on the channel a couple of years ago. Now, these are all together, so this is a bit of a longer video, but I'm going to put chapter links in as well, so if you want to go to one movie to see how, what we thought of Halloween 2 as an example, you'll have a way to do that. Just click on the link in the description. Let us know also if you have a favorite Halloween film in the comment section below, and let's keep the dialogue moving there. And so again, wanted to show this series of videos all at once, so enjoy it. Now, today we're going to talk about Halloween 2. So Halloween 2 is a sequel in 1981 to the original Halloween from 1978. It was directed by first-time director Rick Rosenthal and produced and written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who obviously did the first movie. So we wanted to talk real briefly today about this film, and because we just saw it recently, I don't think we've ever seen this movie together.
I don't think so.
So I think we wanted to talk about it just a little bit, since it's one of the first Halloween movies we've seen this season. We've been watching a lot more Halloween movies early, it seems like, this year. So it happened to be on Amazon Prime. We don't have the DVDs. We don't have physical media for this. We have obviously the original version of Halloween in many different formats, Blu-ray, DVD, lots of things. But Halloween 2 we noticed was on Amazon Prime, so we decided to watch it. So what did you think of the film?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a good follow-up. Obviously we see Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and they show a little bit of the end of the last movie, of the original movie.
Yeah.
And in some scenes they show maybe some different angles that we didn't see before, or just a different way of a different perspective on it. I know there's a couple scenes with Dr. Loomis where he's doing some things from the first film, but you see it from a different angle.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. One of the things we really liked about the movie is that it does give a nod to some classic horror films like Night of the Living Dead. So Night of the Living Dead is a movie that's playing. Well, Night of the Living Dead was directed by George Romero, and it's on a couple of the TV screens in the hospital, because a lot of this movie takes place in the hospital, because Laurie Strode is taken to the hospital after the end of the first movie. So basically, Halloween 2 continues on where the first movie left off.
Yeah.
And so she goes to the hospital, and in a way I was kind of disappointed that she didn't have more of a role in this movie. It seemed like she had more of a role near the end. She didn't have a lot of lines, Jamie Lee Curtis. She didn't really have a lot of lines. She did a lot of physical things, but she really didn't have a lot of lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it kind of falls short for me, is that in the first one, it felt like there was a lot of kind of story. Like, all the story building it did in the first movie kind of relied on that a lot as the second movie, instead of building on it. I mean, it did build on the story that they started in the first one, but I think that it could have done a bit more in building the story and given Laurie's character some lines. Yeah,
she did seem to, again, since she didn't have a lot of lines, there were, near the end of the film she does a lot of more physical things, but she doesn't say a lot. But part of it is because she's in shock, we think, or she's been medicated when she goes to the hospital. But yeah, that was something that I didn't particularly like about the movie either, because I thought she'd have more of a central role in it. But John Carpenter didn't really want to be that much involved in this movie. He was off directing Escape from New York, so not sure if that had anything to do with it, whether Jamie Lee Curtis was just, offered to do the movie because it was lucrative for her to do it.
Right.
And they do, without giving any spoilers, if you haven't seen Halloween 2, there is a big reveal in the movie in terms of the storyline, but we won't reveal that. But definitely watch the movie. You know, they talk about the reason Michael Myers is pursuing her. They talk about the reason for that,
Yeah.
which is new, I think. They don't really reveal that in the first movie,
Right.
which I'm assuming takes you through the other movies too. So I think overall we really like this movie. There was another nod to a classic horror film, Psycho. There's a scene where one of the characters comes into a room and someone's sitting in a chair. They've obviously been killed, and I think it was one of the nurses, and she touches the shoulder of this man, and the chair turns around, just like it's the same thing that happens in Psycho at the end of Psycho. Hope we're not spoiling Psycho for you
and
either.
There was a lot of like shadows on curtains, which was a lot like Psycho when you're in the hospital.
Yep. While we were watching the movie, I was saying too, and I don't know how true this is, but the movie reminded me a lot of the beginning of The Walking Dead for some reason, because of the hospital scene. You know, when Rick is in the hospital at the beginning.
In the beginning of The Walking Dead, the series, he wakes up in a hospital that's pretty much abandoned, and you do kind of get that like creepy feeling, like it's like the least busy hospital we've ever seen.
Well, they do say at some point in the movie that it's a clinic, so I don't know if that means that it's not maybe as busy, but I found that odd too. There were not a lot of people in that hospital.
Yeah, there was like, I think like the one nurse you follow is like the one nurse on like the entire like pediatric floor or something, and she's not even that old. She's probably like maybe 20. And so, yeah, there was like one security guard. Like, I guess like maybe because it's a small town, but still, you'd think that there'd be more people in the
there would be
hospital.
more people, yeah. One of the best reasons to watch this film is for Donald Pleasence. Now, Donald Pleasence is a classic character actor, and he's great in this. And of course, he's great in the first one too, as Dr. Loomis. But he's got a couple scenes. The one in the police car, I'm thinking in particular, where he they give him a monologue that's kind of creepy. And kind of weird, but he pulls it off really well. So I'm a huge fan of Donald Pleasence, and I really think he helps to make these movies as good as they are. So
yeah, I mean, as much as we kind of didn't like that Laurie wasn't reacting as much, he kind of takes the other side, and he's almost hysterical because he's done this thing and it didn't have the effect he expected, and so the rest of the film he's kind of just like, why didn't that work? What's going on? What is up with Michael Myers, and why is he not as human as maybe we thought he was? And so I think that, like, for me, the story could have been a bit stronger if it focused more on him and less on what Laurie was doing, because she wasn't doing a whole lot.
Yeah, there's a whole series of scenes too where they try to pull his character from the movie, because he's riding around in the police car and he's firing the gun, and so people are concerned that he's going to damage the reputation of the hospital and things like that. So I think 3/4 of the way through the film, a character comes to get him and says, "Hey, you're out of here." And they put him in a police car with a U.S. Marshal, and he starts to drive out. And then he tells this very creepy story, and they realize that Michael Myers is in the hospital, and they turn the car around. And that's, I think that's actually a pretty funny scene, because he shoots out the window of the car, and the U.S. Marshal quickly turns the car around to go to the hospital. He's pretty afraid that Dr. Loomis is going to go crazier than he already is. So I think in general we really like this movie, and it's a really good sequel to Halloween. There's a couple things, like we said, that maybe they could have done a little bit better. The pace could have been better, but I think in general, a pretty classic slasher movie, and you and I have never seen it together, so I think it was a great first watch for us, and so we wanted to share those comments with you. We just finished Halloween 3, so we thought we'd make a short video to let you know what we thought of it. I really liked it.
Yeah, I surprisingly liked it.
Yeah. So what did you think in general?
Well, I guess I should say at first I didn't like it because I thought it was part of like the Michael Myers Halloween series, and then when Michael Myers didn't show up, I was disappointed. But now I went into it knowing that he wasn't in it, and I actually really liked it a lot.
Yeah, I really liked it too, and I thought if you're a fan of Stranger Things, as an example, right, this movie, it seems like a big influence on Stranger Things, and we saw like a throwback to Psycho. Also, the motel they stay in looks exactly like the Bates Motel. Well, not exactly like, but it looks a lot like the Bates Motel. I felt like there's references to the 1973 version of Westworld, and also the new Westworld, because there's some robots in the. Obviously, we're not going to give you any spoilers for this one, but Halloween 3 is from 1982, so I'm assuming most horror fans have seen this movie
Yeah.
and have an opinion on it. If you have an opinion on it, let us know in the comments what you thought of the film. I was really surprised too. I think if you go in not expecting to see Michael Myers, then it's fine.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
but if you're expecting to see a continuation of Halloween 2, then you might be disappointed. But
Right.
I thought the story was really original. Some of the effects were pretty decent. I mean, it is, like I said, a movie from 1982. Tom Atkins as as one of the lead characters, I thought he was really good.
There's some references to the Halloween series in this movie as well. There's a lot of television in this movie,
Yep.
which is interesting, and especially commercials. And so it was at least nice to see like a hint of the Halloween series within the movie.
Right, and I think you were even saying how the movie seems to show how we're all influenced by commercials and just media in general,
Yeah.
which I thought was an interesting take on Halloween 3. There's one other thing I was going to say about it, but I can't remember now what it is.
Yeah, a big part of the movie is we should say a big part of the movie is like a strobing commercial, so you might just want to have that in mind if you're sensitive to strobing lights.
Might want to look away during that part.
Yeah,
because
but I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like the music kind of adds to the effect, so you'll kind of know. But the main plot kind of borrows from this idea of like a viral commercial, like before viral videos, like a viral commercial, like those ones where you're like, I cannot watch this commercial any like one more second, like turn it off, like that. That's a theme in the film, which I thought was really interesting, given that it's the 80s and like technology isn't as integrated into life as it is now. It was interesting that it was still kind of very relevant. I didn't expect that.
And the commercial in the film, the Silver Shamrock commercial, is so annoying. You'll get it stuck in your head for sure.
Yeah.
I think overall we really like this movie and would highly recommend it if you're a Halloween fan. Again, don't expect Michael Myers to be in the movie, but as a standalone film, we really liked it. We're moving on now to the rest of the Halloween films. Halloween 4 is next. Saw Halloween 4. Were you excited for Halloween 4? We wanted to see Michael Myers come back, I think.
I was excited for
And
the
Michael
series
Myers,
to continue.
yeah, and Michael Myers did come back in a big way. Now, we should say, before we start to talk about Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers, if you haven't seen the movie, we are going to talk about...
spoil it a lot.
We're going to spoil it.
A lot.
So we'll give you 3 seconds.
If you still want to see Halloween 4 and you don't want us to spoil it for you, turn off the video right now, go watch it, and then come back and see what we thought.
So we'll do... Ready? 3, 2, 1...
All right, now it's time to spoil the movie.
All right, now we can talk to everyone and we can spoil it.
All right, did they leave?
Is everybody gone? Okay. For those of you that have stayed, that have seen Halloween 4, we liked it. It wasn't my favorite, though.
No.
It still wasn't my favorite. I still like Halloween 2 and 3 better than 4. However, Michael Myers is back.
He's back.
And Donald Pleasance, I felt like, really made the movie enjoyable for me anyway.
Yeah.
He had really bad makeup. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
His makeup looked different, of course, if you remember Halloween 2, and we're talking spoilers here, so we know there was a fire at the end of Halloween 2. That's okay to say, right? Because we said
we're going to
be spoiling things.
And if you're watching a video about 4, you probably already
have already seen 2. I know.
Yeah.
I can't do the math right. But anyway, does that make any sense? No.
Yeah, well, because 3 is in between, but there's no Michael Myers in the
There's
third
no
one.
Michael Myers in the third, right? We're confusing ourselves. But anyway, Donald Pleasance gives a really good performance in this one.
Does.
He's very dramatic. He has a lot of scenes. They give him lots to do. However, his makeup is different in every scene, just about, and it's it's pretty patchy. So, I'm apologizing to the makeup person for Halloween 4, but it wasn't good.
They did what they could with what they had. But as someone who watches the show Face Off, I don't know if people who watch our stuff watch Face Off, but it's about like movie props and movie makeup specifically. It was disappointing.
It wasn't very good, yeah.
But
we should say the thing I forgot to mention too. So this is, even though it's 10 years later in the movie timeline or in the story timeline, it's really 1988, right? So this movie happened 6 years after Halloween 3.
Right, but it takes place 10 years after.
It takes place 10 years after. Again,
1 and 2, because 1 and 2 are on the same
There's a
day.
lot of math involved here, but yeah. So what did you like about it? What did you enjoy about the movie?
I have to say my favorite part about the movie was the end. because there's
when it was over.
No, not when it was over. Towards the end, while I know we're talking spoilers, I don't want to like spoil everything.
You don't have to spoil everything. No, it's fine.
But the last 10 minutes, there's a really great twist that I didn't see coming.
That's probably going to take us into the next movie.
Yeah, that's
we know
like
that
directly
already.
related to the next movie. So while I was a little disappointed because you don't get to see Michael Myers kill people in his traditional fashion like you would in 1 and 2,
right?
The end really saved this movie for me.
Yeah, and we liked the beginning also, right? We thought the beginning was interesting because it's a new story. You're getting used to, is Michael Myers going to come back? It was a little confusing with the dream sequences and stuff at the beginning.
That's true.
The thing I noticed about it too is, I guess I hadn't noticed this before, but the parallel, I guess, between Michael Myers and kind of a Frankenstein character, because Michael Myers moves pretty slow, just the way his, the way the mask looks and the way his head looks and everything just reminds me of Frankenstein, which I guess is pretty classic horror. And then the other thing we noticed too, which I'd be interested to hear your thoughts again on, which is that there were some parallels we feel like to Jaws, right? Because there's a point in the movie where there's a lot of folks in the town that go after Michael Myers because they've...
Well, yeah, so towards the last third of the movie, I think, would you say?
Yeah.
They discover that Michael Myers is back in Haddonfield, and they want to basically close the town down because they don't know where he is. And there's a bunch of guys at the local bar, and they're like, well, let's go do something about it.
They just take matters into their own hands and do it.
They call the sheriff's office, and nobody answers. And so they're like, well, we've got to go check out what's going on. So everybody gets in their trucks and drives to the sheriff's office, which is very much like the scene in Jaws where everybody's in their boat looking for the shark.
Right, and we just happened to see Jaws again. Jaws was on AMC, one of the local cable stations here, last night, and we saw that scene where they all get in their boats and they're all searching for the shark.
Right.
At the well, I guess
that's at
the very beginning of the movie, right? So we thought there was some parallels there, with Jaws, which is another classic horror film too.
There was one at towards the end too, where she's driving the truck and she wants to hit him, right? And she says like, "Why won't you die?" or
so. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What does she say?
Well, she swears like they do at the end of Jaws. We don't have to say it here because, well, we don't need to say it here. But anyway, we know what happens.
There's a classic line in Jaws that
we don't want to spoil Jaws for you either. By the way, if you haven't seen Jaws, turn this video off right now because we're going to spoil Jaws for you now, too.
I don't think we're going to spoil it.
All right, Jaws is
there's a classic line towards the end of Jaws about how the shark is still alive and they'd rather not have that.
Right.
And it's very similar at the end of Halloween 4. Yeah.
So I guess the reality is we liked it. We liked it. It wasn't my favorite so far. We're ready to head into Halloween 5. That's the next movie. And we're watching these in order for the first time this year. I don't think I've even seen Halloween 5, 6, H2O. I may have seen
a little bit. We saw H2O a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And we've seen Halloween 2018, but we're not even there yet.
I think for this one, just like my problem with 2 is that I like a little bit more backstory or story or like character development, what's driving the character. And I don't get that as much in these, but I think now that I know that and knowing what the description of Halloween 5 is, I think I'm going to kind of get that in these later movies. Yeah.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Wow.
Yeah.
I like that one. That was a good one. Yeah, I think this is our favorite so far, outside of the original Halloween for me anyway, and I know you like Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
But I'm reserving the original one as my favorite because it's the first one I ever saw and it's the original music and everything.
I definitely give credit for the first one. Like, we wouldn't have any of the others if we didn't have the first one.
If we didn't have the first one, that's all
But I guess in terms of my favorite of all the films, I like the 2018 one the most. That's fine.
So if you haven't seen Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, we're going to give you a chance to turn the video off now. Go watch the movie. This video is going to be here, so you can come back to it later, but we don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it.
We want to really talk about the details and get into the plot points. So if you haven't seen it, be sure to go watch it first.
Right, and we're going to do a countdown like we did last time. So we'll do a 3, 2, 1. Okay, now we can talk about it.
Now we can talk about it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I really liked the connection between Michael and Jamie, the little girl. I liked how they told kind of both sides of the story, and that she had a direct connection to him, which was a little bit weird, but I think it worked for this film.
Yeah.
And I think it helped build tension from the beginning to the end.
Right.
Whereas sometimes when you're introduced, like when we're first introduced to Laurie in the first movie, we don't really know who she is or why she's important. And so the story has to pay a lot of time, spend a lot of time building that connection. And now that we're into the fifth movie, we were saying that like it feels like there's some payoff to being devoted to the series at this point.
That's true. And one of the things I liked about the movie is all of the throwbacks to some of the earlier horror films, like The Exorcist is number one.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of the ones that comes to mind right away, because they introduce a character that we don't know that much about. We see his boots coming off a bus. We see him stamping out a cigarette, I think.
Yeah, eventually we get to see like his profile with his hat. But
yeah, we see his profile, but it seems like the way they light him and things like that reminded me of The Exorcist a lot. So there's that movie. Plus we have the Frankenstein connection that we talked about before, where Michael Myers, there's just a lot of that referenced. We have The Shining also at one point, because Michael Myers breaks through a door that looks exactly like, I mean the door doesn't look exactly like The Shining, but he breaks through the door.
The way the scene is set up is very much like The Shining.
What was the other one? Psycho also. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of references there. There's a point in the movie where there's a light bulb that's swinging just like it does at the end of Psycho. So there's a lot of those references, which I really like, because it really means that the production is paying homage to some of these horror films that have been an inspiration, right?
Yeah. And we also could see how it kind of inspired the Scream series with like the classic like slasher Final Girl kind of setup with the chase and the way that the villain, the killer, like just shows up places, which is very much like how they do it in Scream. So I could definitely see how they borrowed or got inspiration from this film and the franchise.
I feel like maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but there's one point where Dr. Loomis smashes a radio against a wall, and that reminded me of Jaws also. So we should say that Donald Pleasance is back in this one. He's great in this one.
He's really great.
I think he's a little bit of a close talker. I think he comes up too close to the characters. I don't know. He's classic Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, right? I mean, you really can't go wrong there. But he really surprises you with his performances, because he gets really close to people, I feel like, where, if you're on set with him, I'm wondering if they tell him to back off or something, because he's so close. There's a couple places where he has a reaction where you think, well, that seems like overacting. But then you're like, well, that's Donald Pleasance. We like Donald Pleasance, so it's okay.
And in the earlier movies of the series, he kind of like loses it in a way. And so as much as, like we had said, it seemed like he was maybe a little scripted or something in the beginning, I think it kind of balanced his overreaction in some instances, where he kind of is just like almost possessed in a different way. That like he is obsessed with Michael Myers and what's driving Michael. And
well, you do get this idea of obsession and being possessed as well, right? In a lot of different ways. And so I think that's also where the Exorcist part comes in too. I felt like we saw maybe more the supernatural element of Michael Myers, which I hadn't really considered before, because he doesn't really, he's not dying, right? I mean, they're doing all these things to him.
In every movie, he's been shot at least 4 times.
He's been shot, he's been burned,
he's been times. He
knocked down a well.
End of 4, he fell down like the mine shaft or whatever it was, and he just is still alive.
Right.
And so clearly he's not human.
Right.
But there was that scene with Jamie in the attic, I think, that was very interesting, because he kind of tried to be human. Like she calls him uncle, and he kind of like snaps out of it for a minute and shows her his face, and he feels kind of like this connection, but then she touches him and he's not having any of that.
Well, we see his face for the first time too, which is unusual. Plus one of the things we forgot, I guess, is the whole Dracula element. Like you were calling that one character that we haven't seen too much of, Van Helsing, right?
Yeah, like the character shows like the tips of his boots, they're black boots with silver metal tips, and they just hint at him. And I don't know much about Dracula and all those vampire movies, so I might be completely off on that. But I just kept calling him Van Helsing, because he never is introduced. He's never, you never directly see his face. We don't know what's going on.
Right.
At the end of the movie, he shows up, and we think he's responsible for like the end, but we don't know anything.
We're not really sure what's happening there.
Because we're in we have the benefit of being in the place where we know what the next movie is called, and they have like matching tattoos or something. I don't know. So knowing that,
Yeah, they've shown some close-ups
Yeah.
of some tattoos on the wrist of Michael Myers and this guy that we haven't seen before, this new character that we haven't seen in previous
Right.
movies.
And
So
I
that's
think
interesting.
because we know the next one is called
The Curse.
we're kind of thinking there are some more supernatural elements, some more maybe like cult references or
Right.
something. And so I think that's why, knowing that, we kind of were trying to explain to ourselves what was going on.
Right.
Especially since in the attic it's very like sacrificial in a way or something. It's very strange.
Well, I think you were saying too that in this one, Michael Myers really takes care in disposing of the bodies, right? Whereas before, in some of the earlier ones, he was just kind of killing people and then leaving them there. This one, he's building a shrine and he brings them all back. So you see some of these characters that have been killed, and they're back in this area with candles and a coffin and things like that, right? So that's all new behavior, I think, for Michael Myers. So, in general, we love this movie. I felt like we really had a good time watching it. Maybe it was the time or the mood that we're in, but because I feel like with a lot of movies, it's all about your mood and whatever time of day it is, potentially. We watched this in the morning. And but I felt like there was a lot of action. The story really moved quickly.
Yeah.
There were new surprises in this one. There was it was kind of class. I think you said it was kind of classic slasher film too, also.
Yeah.
Which as many of you have seen before from watching the channel, I'm not a big horror fan. This is all new, for me. You've seen maybe a lot more horror than I have.
Maybe, yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's interesting that Laurie is kind of considered a final girl in the beginning, right? A final girl is like the last girl who survives in a horror movie. And in the first and second movies, she's the one who continues to survive. And in 4 and now 5, Jamie, the little girl, is considered a final girl because she's still alive. And I think we noticed that too, that in the first few movies, Michael just kills a lot of people. And he sees people, and they're usually couples, and he just doesn't like it and kills them.
Right.
And in this movie, he really kind of like stalks his prey in a way. Like he doesn't just kill a bunch of people from the very beginning. There's a few main characters we follow for a long time before anything happens to them.
That's true. Yeah. So I think we, like I said, we really like this one. Watched Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
That's right.
My God, what a disaster that movie was. What a disaster. Wasn't it a disaster?
That was not my favorite.
It was not my favorite either, but I think we'll talk about some things we liked about it. First, we should say
it's rough. Yeah.
It is a rough movie, but if you don't want to be spoiled,
yeah,
we will do the counter, and I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, fade to black, and then we'll talk about the movie. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now we can talk about the movie. We can talk about just how bad it is. I guess we shouldn't say it's completely horrible. I mean, one of the things I did like about it is Paul Rudd, right? You see Paul Rudd for the first time, and this apparently introduced Paul Rudd. We didn't check IMDb or anything, but I think this was his first movie, or one of his first movies. And he plays a creepy dude.
Yeah, he's creepy.
He plays Tommy, who was one of the original kids that was being babysat by Jamie Lee Curtis in the first movie, and he turns out to be this weird stalker guy with a camera up in his...
He's not really a stalker.
He's interested he's very interested in Halloween, let's put it that way.
Well, no, he's obsessed with Michael Myers, obviously because he was traumatized as a kid because his babysitter was then stalked by this guy.
Right.
So he ends up living in this building, this like house, I think, that was turned into apartments across the street from where Michael Myers lived as a kid. And the story...
But he's got like newspapers all over the wall.
Oh, yeah,
really weird.
He's like very into the story. Yeah. The plot of the movie is that at the end of Halloween 5, Michael Myers is rescued from the guy which we refer to as Van Helsing because he had no character name. And the police station is like exploded, like caught on fire or something like that. So then it gets really weird, and that guy is like part of a cult, which Michael is also a part of, and they took Jamie and they made a baby, and they want the baby back. Like Jamie leaves with the baby. And so most of the story is about how Michael has these distant relatives. As you can see, it gets a little thin.
The distant relatives live in the old house,
right?
Where
they live in Michael's old house, and so Michael is called to them, but then somehow he like can tell kids to kill their families. I don't know. It's not.
It's not very well put together, but
No.
we will say too, one of the other things I liked about it, since I'm trying to focus on the positive here and things I liked, is Donald Pleasance, right? This is Donald Pleasance's this is Donald Pleasance's last movie, and they do dedicate the movie to him at the end in
Right.
memory of Donald Pleasance, because I think he died soon after this. But if I'm wrong on that, correct me in the comments. Feel free to correct me in the comments down below. If this was one of your favorite movies, if this is one of your favorite Halloween movies, please leave a comment down below and let us know why.
Yeah,
because-
I mean, like, if you can sway us to enjoy this
Yeah.
movie, please do.
I mean, I think we like it because it's a continuation of the Halloween, series, and
Yeah.
Michael Myers as a
I
character
think it
and things
does a
like
good
that.
job of connecting Halloween 5 to this story. While it's a little hard for me, who likes character and relationship kind of based stories, to follow it, if you just know, okay, this is a Halloween movie, Michael Myers is in it, there's some cult, I think you'll be fine. But I liked like how boiled down the first couple episodes, couple movies are,
Yeah.
about how it's about Michael and what drives him, and Donald Pleasance, who's Dr. Loomis, who wants to stop him, and Laurie, who's kind of caught in this whole drama.
This was just very confusing, I felt like, because you and I were asking a lot of questions about who are these
Yeah.
characters and what are they doing. They really don't talk about that until further into the movie, when you find out that there's relatives living in the house, and they kind of reveal
Yeah.
that slowly, as opposed to telling you in the beginning. When I didn't really appreciate that type of mystery. I wanted to kind of know who these characters were, so I could know whether I liked them or not. So that part of it I found very confusing. And I'm not a big fan of cult stories either. I know there's a lot of movies related to cults and stuff, but I guess I'm not a big fan of those types of things. But
I appreciate cult stories more when the cult isn't so apparent. Like there's, when I guess I kind of think of like Rosemary's Baby, where like all of the neighbors feel like they kind of know each other, like something's going on, but you don't really know what's going on. I like when that's kind of the main mystery, as opposed to like, here are a bunch of people who are doing strange things,
yeah.
and it's not the main story.
Yeah,
It was
and
difficult.
Rosemary's Baby, you're right. That's a classic. I was going to say too, one of the last things I liked about it, there is a little bit of a throwback in this movie to the first Halloween movie, in that there's one killing that takes place outside, and there's a bunch of sheets hanging on the line, and so to me it reminded me of the first movie. And there's a couple scenes on the sidewalk too, also where it's it very much reminds me of the atmosphere of that first movie, right?
Yeah.
With the Strode sister is walking along the streets, and you kind of feel like it's the first movie. But other than that, I don't know that we like this movie very much, but we're ready to move on to the next one. Let's put it that way. So the next one, our next Halloween movie, which is Halloween H20. I'm calling it the right thing this time. I used to call it H2O, but I'm going to call it H20.
Yeah.
It is 20 years later.
From the original first Halloween.
From the original first Halloween. So this movie was made in 1998. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. She's back,
Yep.
which is great to see. We really like this movie. We'll just say that right off the bat. We will be talking about spoilers here a little bit. So if you don't want to see a spoiler, should we do the countdown, or should we just say you can turn off the video?
You can just turn it off and then
You just turn off the video, and
come
then
back after you watch
this video will be here, so you can come back to it later. But we will be talking about spoilers. So turn off the video and come on back later.
Last warning.
Last warning, right? But we really like this movie a lot, and it was honestly a refreshing change after the last movie, The Curse of Michael Myers. This one, we're like, wow, we're all in on this one. So we should say too that this movie seemed like it started off the careers of people like Michelle Williams, Josh Hartnett. Did I say that right, Josh?
Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right. You do get the voice of Donald Pleasance, but it's not really him. I think it's a voice actor because, of course, he's passed away.
Yeah.
So what did we like about this movie?
Well, I think we first like that the character of Laurie Strode comes back, and there's a long opening scene, but then the opening credits do a really good job of kind of filling in the gap of like, where has she been, what's been going on. And Laurie also kind of hints throughout the film of like where she's been, what she did to kind of stay out of the spotlight and live a somewhat normal life up until now.
We should say too in the beginning, one of the things I noticed in the beginning, there's a lot of jump scares in the beginning. So there was one point in the movie where I actually jumped in this movie, which I don't think I've ever done that in a movie since we've watched Halloween movies, but they kind of condition you in the beginning for these jump scares, and so you're waiting for them, and then it's usually somebody like Adam Arkin coming out of the darkness, because Adam Arkin plays her boyfriend in the movie, and he's around sometimes, and then he'll all of a sudden show up, and you're kind of jumping, right? I jumped the camera there a little bit.
They give you jump scares early, but then the actual scares aren't jump scares.
Right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
like you'll see something pop out, but then it'll really be like Michael Myers is just behind her.
Right.
So like the audience gets the jump scare first, and then the character gets the jump scare while you watch them get scared.
Yeah, I really like the last 20 minutes of this film. I think are great. There's a lot of great action sequences, and Laurie's in it.
I guess we should say maybe a little bit about like what it's about.
Oh yeah.
So it's 20 years after the original Halloween, where Michael killed his sister and almost killed Laurie. And Laurie has changed her name. She's a mom. She has a 17-year-old son now. And she's like the head mistress of this boarding school. Is it a boarding school?
I think so.
I think it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more like on the West Coast. This film isn't necessarily like in Illinois, I don't think.
Although it starts off in Illinois.
It does, yeah. And so she's teaching at this school, and she seems like she has kind of a normal life, but the more as the movie goes on, you see that her life really isn't normal, and that this whole Michael thing has messed her up for her whole life.
Well, she has a lot of nightmares, as you might expect. She's an alcoholic, it seems like. There's lots of shots of her drinking.
She's full of pills. And, yeah, she drinks a lot.
Which you might expect after some encounters with Michael Myers. You might expect that you would have those kind of issues, right? We should also say, too, Janet Leigh is in this film. Obviously, Janet Leigh from Psycho. Yeah. Janet Leigh is actually Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
In real life.
And in real life. And so, but she plays a character in the movie. There's music that reminds you of Psycho in the movie.
Yeah.
Janet Leigh's driving a car like she did in Psycho. So there are lots of references there. We feel like, too, we should talk about the music a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds very much like a Hitchcock film. Like there's a lot of strings. It's more orchestral than like the classic Halloween theme of like, has more like a techno kind of beat, I think.
Yeah,
different.
Yeah, I really find that I miss the Halloween theme from the original movie too, because they really do in some of these later films. They really do change it a little bit. There's some piano when Michael Myers is around and things like that, but then they tend to morph it with strings or electronic instruments, like you say. So
they kind of get creative with the theme song here. It's not like every time Michael's in the shot that there's the classic music.
Right.
It's kind of just part of the music of the movie. It's not like an indicator that Michael's around like it used to be.
I think the other thing, too, while we're talking about this, you also get these kind of parallels again with Frankenstein, right? There's a classroom scene where Michelle Williams, where they're talking over, Frankenstein, the Mary Shelley book.
Yeah, like Laurie's teaching the class, and they're talking about the book Frankenstein.
So, and even though Michael Myers seems to move slow and quick sometimes, I mean, I know there's always this debate about slow-moving zombies and fast-moving zombies, but sometimes he appears to move really fast, and then other times it's very slow.
Yeah, we did notice that like there are times that he would move very quickly.
Yeah.
And he seemed to, in the beginning,
and then all of a sudden he's moving.
He seems very fast.
And all of a sudden he's moving slowly, but it's not necessarily related to if he gets an injury. Obviously he gets hit with things during this movie and stabbed and shot and all this stuff.
I should say that his mask was not very impressive compared to the first one. They seem to get further and further away from the original, but I think that's going to cycle back in 2018. I feel like the mask was very realistic.
The other thing, too, is LL Cool J, I think, gives a little comic relief in this movie.
Yeah.
He plays one of the guards at the school.
Yeah, he's like the main security guard who runs the front gate. And for most of the movie, he's also talking to his girlfriend on the phone. So it's a little funny. I think he's writing like an erotic thriller or something
he's
like
doing,
that.
I don't know. But he does. But there are some laughs there, too.
Yeah.
And maybe you should talk about the car, right? So Michael Myers steals this car. Go ahead.
So we've been talking since we've been watching these movies, because I think a few years ago we also watched part of the Rob Zombie Halloween, and so we've been a little bit confused in the actual timeline of events. But within the franchise of Michael Myers, there's a scene where there's women in a bathroom, or something. There's a bathroom scene where Michael shows up. I feel like we've seen it maybe 4 different times. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. But in this movie specifically, there's a woman and her little daughter. She's maybe like 6, maybe 5 or 6. And they pull up to this, it's not even a rest stop. It's just a random bathroom.
It's like a random restroom somewhere,
it's just a
but
random like national park outhouse kind of thing. They pull up and they're driving this really old, weird truck. And Michael's driving like a 70s car. And so he, you know, comes in and terrorizes them a little bit, and then he takes their car. But to me, it's a very Michael Myers vehicle. It is not a very single woman with her daughter in the middle of nowhere kind of vehicle. So while it fits the theme, it felt very odd to me.
I was just thinking, like, it looks like a kind of a green overalls type of vehicle, right? Which is what he wears most of the time.
Yeah.
But the vehicle itself is very old and
right.
and very like
it's like
faded green
like,
something. Yeah.
I mean,
it's perfect for Michael Myers, but
it's
why
like,
would he?
Yeah, it's kind of like that goth, like creepy vibe. Like once you see it, you'll know. And you're like, oh yeah, he would totally drive that.
Right.
Or it reminds me of like Jeepers Creepers, maybe. I think in that movie he might drive like a very strange old, like classic kind of truck. But it was just very weird to me that like they're like, we want to get Michael in a weird truck. How can we do that?
Which is perfect, by the way, too.
Yeah.
But it's just weird how he got to it. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think in summary, unless we have anything else to say about it, I think I love this movie. I thought it was great. I thought it's a really good restart to the movie. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more thing. So I originally saw this film on television, on like a TV airing, and the ending. We have to talk about the ending.
Well, are we going to really talk truly about the ending?
We don't need to talk 110%
specific about the ending. Yeah.
But so I saw this movie on TV. I think it was on like FX or some cable channel, and obviously they're edited for time and content, and this is a rated R movie. But the ending was not the ending that actually happens in the movie. Like, I was so surprised. I think that maybe even the last 15 minutes weren't the same.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I'm sure I saw this movie in the theater when it came out, and I don't remember the ending at all. So, you'll be surprised potentially at the ending. So,
yeah.
And especially as we go into the next movie. But
it was also an ending that I was so rooting for. I think I kind of called it, but
you called it before it happened, and I was like, "Oh, that's never going to happen," and then it did happen.
I did not think it was going to happen at all. I was like, "It should happen." We're like, "This should happen," but it won't happen. It definitely won't happen, and then it does, and then you're shocked, and it happens, and then the movie's over, and so now.
And then we're on to the next one, Resurrection.
So now we had to like make this video so we can watch Resurrection this afternoon.
That's right. So we really like this movie. I mean, I think that's the reality of it. We really enjoyed this movie. It was a good restart. It was a good refresher or it was good change after the last one, which we had trouble with.
If you weren't a huge fan of like 4, 5, and 6. Definitely try this one. Yeah. I think you even could maybe skip those if you didn't like them. If you haven't liked them in the past, you could probably watch 1, 2, and age 20.
I mean, I like it that we're going through all of them just to kind of get a sense of it. It's the first time I've ever done it. Well, first time we've ever done that. And like I said, I've seen age 20 before. See, I'm calling it the right thing now.
That's good.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So,
I think that 4, 5, and 6 are valuable in the franchise, but if you're someone who's turned off from the series because of those, try this one.
Yeah.
Because it's different.
Talk about the final Halloween film that we're going to watch in the series. Obviously, we mentioned before in the channel we're going to watch Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018, but we watched another disaster of a Halloween movie called Halloween Resurrection.
Yep.
What did you think of that one? I just said I thought it was a disaster, so.
I didn't like it.
Yeah. We like the beginning of it. I feel like we like the yeah, go ahead.
Well, should we say that if you haven't seen it, you should.
If you haven't seen this movie, don't ever watch it. No.
Stop.
If you haven't seen this movie, we are going to spoil it, so you might want to turn off the video now. This video will be here, so you can always come back to it. Let me focus on what I liked about it, because we've been doing that with these Halloween films, especially ones that we really don't like that much.
Right.
And one of the things I liked about it was the first like 10 or 15 minutes, because Jamie Lee Curtis was back. It seemed like a pretty decent story.
Yeah.
And the other thing I liked too, right off the bat, was in the credits, I felt like the music was restored to what it was in Halloween 1978. Because I think we mentioned on the last video that we said that the music was a little, it had more strings and sounded a little different. But this one, we thought, wow, we're really setting ourselves up for a good movie because of the music.
Yeah.
And of course, that wasn't the case. But
yeah, so I really liked the beginning. I think it did good. I did a good job of like reestablishing Laurie, and I liked the parallel between like in the beginning Michael's in like a sanatorium, and then Jamie.
Is it sanatorium or sanitarium? That's okay.
know.
Whatever it is.
I'll redo it.
It's one of those. No, you don't have to redo it.
I really like how in the beginning, like, Laurie's in a hospital, and that kind of connects to the second film, how Laurie was in the hospital after Michael's attack. And I also liked the parallel where, like, Michael was in hospital for a while because he's, you know, deemed, like, psychotic or something. And then also the
daughter,
Michael's niece,
the
Laurie's
niece was
daughter,
right.
If that's the right parallel. She was also in a hospital, and I think in Halloween 4?
It's hard to remember now. We have to go back and watch our own videos to remember.
So I liked how it kind of connected that, like, there's a family, the family is kind of sick in a way. And I don't know, I just really liked how they set up the whole film. But then there was, like, this twist, and we just didn't know.
We weren't really sure. I don't think we're still sure what happened in the beginning and why it was left that way. And we know that from seeing Halloween 2018, we know that Jamie Lee Curtis is not gone.
Right, her character is alive.
Her character is alive, but yet she falls off. So was that a dream, or does she always have these dreams because she's experiencing PTSD in a way? So that was a little bit confusing. And then, of course, it moves off into a whole nother area with this kind of reality show, you know, where they're putting people into a house, into Michael Myers' house.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we had trouble watching a lot of the movie because of the way it was filmed. It's kind of filmed in a Blair Witch Project kind of style,
like
handheld
camera. Well, I guess like in the beginning it sets up that each person who's a contestant in the show, although it's not really like a game.
It's not really a game, but they have to spend a night in the house or something.
They're just like on it, and they each have like a camera like about here, like as if like a pen is in your ear or something like that. Like they're wearing these cameras, so like it's very unstable, and I personally get a little bit nauseous feeling with cameras. They keep too unsteady,
and they keep shifting back and forth. So it's not like they give you the idea that they're wearing cameras, but then they keep doing it over and over again.
Keep, like, switching to their point of view, and it just like made me nauseous.
It's really tough to watch. And so if you do have that kind of an issue where you have trouble watching those types of things, which we both do, I feel like I had to look away for some of the movie because I just couldn't really handle all that handheld work.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good idea, but at the same time, it was too much of it. We get it.
Yeah.
They're on TV. They're being monitored, etc.
Well, and I think one of the big problems I had with it was that in the beginning they established Michael and Laurie, which I really liked, and they explained how Michael escaped, which is I think my favorite part of the whole series, is that you'll see an ending of a movie and then you'll be like, oh, Michael must be dead, and then in the beginning of the next movie they'll show you like how he got away, which I think is really great. But it set up that whole part, and then it switched to this whole cast that we don't know at all. And so I didn't feel connected to them. I wasn't rooting for them. I had no clue why I was supposed to care about whether they lived or died. And so it made it really hard for me to watch the film because there was nobody to root for.
Yeah, I agree. It was very confusing and really not very good. But, the other thing too, I was thinking of this too, and I think we talked about this when we were watching the movie, but it was done in 2002. I think it was 2002, but this is right about the time that reality shows started to take off, right? Like Survivor is an example, which we've been watching a lot of, as we mentioned on the channel.
Right.
So we were talking about the fact that maybe the franchise was trying to cash in on some of that idea where this is a reality show. It's like kind of a Big Brother type of show.
Yeah, but it was only like, it was like a web series. They were watching it.
Yeah,
like there was that whole other part of the story where this character's friend's sister was on the show, but they were watching it from a computer at a party. So it wasn't like it was on TV where it was like Big Brother. Like I could totally see a Big Brother kind of thing where like they have to live in the house, but then they only had to live in the house for a day. I don't know. The more you talk about the plot, the more I think it falls apart.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the other things we liked about the movie is when it was over.
Yeah.
No, but I think we liked the ending too. There were some action sequences near the ending that I felt were pretty good when Michael Myers was in the house and kind of stalking them. There was a person that was playing Michael Myers. It might have been Busta Rhymes was playing Michael Myers in the movie. And so you weren't sure who was the real Michael Myers for a while in a couple of instances. And so near the end of the movie, I felt like there were some good action sequences. And
oh yeah, I think that was kind of like a theme throughout the movie, was like, I mean, obviously we're spoiling, so at the end of the last one, Laurie cuts off Michael's head, but it turns out that it's not Michael, and so that was kind of like a thread throughout the film. Like, we meet a character in the hospital who it could be instead of Michael. We meet the producer of the show who dresses up like Michael Myers, so it could be that it's not Michael. So I did kind of like that idea, but I think that it could have been better. It could have been better executed, and I just didn't care about any of the characters or the story.
I agree. So I think we'll wrap it up right there. We wanted to make just a short video to kind of close this series up. As we mentioned, we won't be watching any other Halloween films except for Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018.
Right.
We won't be doing the Rob Zombie movies, but we did start Halloween 2018 last night, but we didn't finish it yet. So we'll finish that today. That's probably what we'll do. And we really like that one, right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, what do you like about it?
I just like that it takes the whole atmosphere of the original and kind of like modernizes it. I like how the characters are developed, and I don't know, I just like overall how they've decided to continue the story.
It has a really great opening too, if you haven't seen the movie already. We really like the opening. It really gets you going for the movie. And Jamie Lee Curtis is great in it. I feel like she really plays up the trauma aspect of what she's going through, and I think she does a great job at it. I really like her performance in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I think we were talking about it too, that it's kind of like designed to just go right after the first one in a way. Like it's just like, okay, 40 years have passed.
It's been 40 years,
right. And what is she up to? What does her life look like? What does Michael's life look like?
Right, because Halloween H2O was in
20 years later, in
H20. I said it wrong. Halloween H20 was in 1998.
Yeah.
And this one is in 2018. Well, thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed our review of all the Halloween films. Let us know in the comments if you have a favorite Halloween movie, including from the Halloween franchise or just any Halloween film. We're always up for new suggestions. And this year we're really excited about Friday the 13th and getting into those. I'm sure we'll be doing some videos on those. If you like this video, click on like. If you like these longer form videos as well, let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, commenting, and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. That would be awesome. I sincerely hope that everyone is safe and well. I'll talk to you soon.